Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sonia, also known as SG from Let the Lady Speak podcast, where we have healthy discussions about life, love, dating, and relationships, and also promote healing, self-love, and loving yourself in your singleness and living your best life, of course. Today we're reviewing Put a Ring on It Season 2, Episode 2. So let's get into it. Before I start though, I want to thank you for coming. Have a seat, sit back, and enjoy. So tonight's episode is titled Flipping the Script because the ladies are going to go on their first date with the men. However, before we get there, we pick up where we left off with Darian trying to decide if he wants to see Kai again. And he says yes. Now, I know I said that I believe Darian's going to be trouble. I do. But I also believe he has a little more insight than we really think. I think he's really trying to figure this out because I think he knows it's time to really make a decision. So he says yes. And his lady, Alexis, you can tell, is really bothered by this. This is not, and she says, well, you keep going on dates, then you guys are dating. But, Dr. Nicole reminds them that this is part of the process and he has a right to his process. I think sometimes in relationships, we feel like we have ownership over people and you don't. And if you guys agreed to something, that's what you agreed to. And in this case, they agreed to come on a show where their mate is going to date other people and you run the risk of them actually, wanting, enjoying and wanting to date another person. This is why I love therapy. Because Dr. Nicole basically said, that's not what you mean. And oftentimes we're not honest about what we mean. We defend ourselves the best way we know how, which is what she was doing, But at the end of the day, you say you want this man, you want to marry this man, and this is the man for you, and you chose this process to figure it out, then you have to kind of go through with it. Saying what you don't mean can be the demise of your relationship. And we oftentimes do that. We do it to protect ourselves and defend ourselves. We don't want people to know that we're hurt. But part of intimacy, which is required in a relationship, is revealing yourself to your partner and letting your partner know that, hey, this hurt me or this bothers me, or whatever it is that you're feeling, and it's always a good thing to say what you really mean and really feel versus saying something that you don't mean and you don't feel. How many times do we know someone where they say some off the wall stuff and they're like, well, what I really mean? No, I know what you said. And it's not for your partner to interpret your meanings. Whatever it is that you're saying, whatever it is that you really truly feel, it's best to be transparent about that. And Dr. Nicole says that don't say what you don't mean to protect yourself. Oftentimes, and I say that about Jessica, people who have abandonment issues, however they were abandoned, whatever stage in life, those are some of the coping skills that you use to deflect. Those are some of the skills you use to defend yourself. So you just have to be careful with that because you want to show up true and authentic in a relationship that you're trying to be in long term. So Dr. Nicole talks about how the ladies are going to go on their dates and she pretty much asks the fellas how they're going to feel about it. Sean is having a hard time and I'm going to get into Sean later in the episode. Eric is, not really, but okay, we signed up for it. And Darian was like, no, I want her to go. I really want her to see what I see and felt what I felt. I think this has been an awakening for Darian. And later we're going to see that it's an awakening for Alexa as well. So first up on the dating scene is Jessica. Jessica is going to go out with Mr. Steal Your Girl. And, we find out that there's jealousy concerns on both ends. So both of them have issues with jealousy. So Eric says that Jessica can be a little flirtatious and so he's a little worried. But, he's trying to play it cool, go around the process. He gives the guy a little hard time. He calls him Randy and things like that. But ultimately, he's holding himself together pretty well and they're going to go on this date. So Jessica and the young man goes to eat and, go have a drink rather. So Jessica and Mr. Steal Your Girl goes out on a date. He orders her a margarita And he's basically just campaigning on, he is truly Mr. Steal Your Girl. He's not like trying to get to know her. He's trying to figure out what's wrong in a relationship so he can get in. And that's why it's important not to say too much about your relationship with people, because they will pretend to be what you are missing so that they can get what they want. But it doesn't mean that their intentions are true or pure, or that they are really ready. He's never been in a relationship. He's never settled down. He said he didn't see the need and he wasn't ready, and now he's ready. And Jessica is just like, oh, he said everything I want to hear, but she's not asking any important questions like, well, what are you looking for exactly? And what made you change your mind? When did you decide that you are ready to settle down? Why did you decide that you're ready to settle down? What does that look like for you? You know, she's just happy that he's like, yeah, I'm all in. It's like, well, Jessica, he's a player. You have a player. Like, don't jump from the chicken grease to the fried turkey grease. That's all I have to say about that. So I'm going to separate the Sean and Alexa segments. So first up, we have Alexa. She's going on a date. The guy is a personal trainer. He's an athlete. Comes to the house. You know, I can honestly say Darian was pretty good. He did say, you know, I'm a protector. So, you know, and I protect her. She's going out with another guy. Essentially, I can't protect her. You know, there were no shots at the dude. He had a guy sit down and things like that. They just had a casual conversation. The guy didn't know him. I actually don't know him either. I'm going to look him up. I'm not familiar, but I'll check it out. Anyway. They go on their date. They're playing, I think it's badminton. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But they go out and they hit some balls and they have a conversation. And this is one of the things I always promote. I promote dating yourself. And I honestly just put up a quick little episode about it. And I'm going to talk about it more on my podcast. But it is important to date yourself. It's important to remember who you are as a person. So the guy is asking Alexa about herself, and she keeps going back to her relationship with Darian. And it's like, no, he's like, I'm trying to get to know you. Who are you? And it felt good for once that she can kind of talk a little bit more about herself. So she's like, I had somebody that listened to what I had to say. But it should also be a flag for her. It should also remind her to make sure she sits with herself and always remember who she is as a person. Being in a relationship doesn't mean you lose who you are as individuals. And a lot of times what happens is that people get settled into trying to be who their partner wants them to be, and they stop being who they are. That what attracted your partner to you no longer exists because you're too busy morphing into what you thought or you think your partner wants. Remember, they chose to be with you and you chose to be with them. And if you guys chose to be together, it's something that brought y'all together. So don't change who you are and don't lose who you are. You guys are supposed to help each other grow into better versions of yourself. And that's pretty much my takeaway with those two. Oh, and so she asked him, why isn't he in a relationship? And I liked his answer. His answer pretty much was, hey, I am not going to get into a relationship until I know that basically we're on the same page. We have the same interest and that you're going to help me. Like, this person is going to be an asset to my life, in short, is what he was saying. And that, you know, their goals in a relationship will line up. So next up, let's talk about Sean. So Dr. Nicole offered in the last meeting that, you know, if you guys need a little help, I'm here. I can come see you. So she does a house visit and she goes to see them. And one thing I really like about Sean and I appreciate about Sean is that he is very open and honest about where he is, what he's feeling, what his struggles are. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to give him slack for that. But it's actually a really good thing that he's able to express himself. Now, I always say you got to be careful, because if you watch the body language between them two, she's very nurturing and comforting, and there isn't anything wrong with that. But when it was all said and done, I watched him like turn and fold into her. And again, there isn't anything wrong with that. in theory, right? There's your partner should comfort you and help you and support you through whatever it is that's happening. But you got to be careful, because sometimes you develop a codependent relationship, right? And one person feels like they're tied to the other person because they now have taken on that person's healing process and that person's pain, when that's really for that person, you know. And if you're dealing with a person who may be manipulative, or who may have abandonment issues, and they're trying to keep you in a certain place so you won't leave them, and they know that you have to nurture them, they will keep putting that off on you. Like, they won't even try to heal. They won't even try to get over it, because guess what? I need them, and they know that I need them. And then the other person who's codependent is like, they need me, and I know that they need me. So basically, you guys are together just needing each other, but you're not necessarily growing and building with one another. And I hope that makes sense. So he opens up about his past. His dad basically just worked, you know, and a form of abandonment isn't always just the parent leaving the home and never coming back. It's not being emotionally available, and also not being physically present. So he had a dad who was in the home, but his dad was never present. His dad was the old school provider, where I come, I give you the money, and whatever else I do is what I do. You're taken care of financially. When in fact, we as human beings need more than that. We need touch and love and comforting and conversation and affection and things like that, you know. So a lot of us don't even know who our parents are, because they are completely different in their roles with us than they are with society, right? So all of these tragedies and whatever else has happened, Sean is carrying all of this. Sean, although like I said, I love the fact that he can communicate and express what's happening with him, he really has to go through, and Dr. Nicole told him this, he has to go through all of this trauma. You know, we are taught to get over things, to get past things, and to pretend like things didn't happen. The fact of the matter is, whatever has hurt you, damaged you, whatever happens in your life, will always be there until you deal with it. It's going to show up in different ways, but it's going to always be there. So the best thing you can ever do whenever you're going through anything is deal with what is happening. Accept it for what it is. Put a name to it and do the work on it so you can work through it. It'll boost your confidence that you know you can get over things, and it'll put it in a place that you in the future can recognize when you're being triggered, so you can either remove yourself, you can communicate it, you know how to operate in that space, and then also you won't keep repeating the same things over and over again. You know, there isn't anything wrong with going through things. We are taught not to in our community. We are taught to ignore. I'm telling you, don't ignore it. All it's going to do is sleep, and it'll wake up one day at the most inopportune time and really take you through. And now Sean is struggling. He can't commit in this relationship because he's still dealing with all of the trauma in his childhood. And now he's created these narratives and these fears, and he's living somebody else's life. This isn't even where he is right now. But in his mind, he's there because he has not dealt with his past, and he should. So LaShonda later gets ready for her date, and he is having a hard time. Like, he became physically sick. He's like, I commend him for trying to cope in some healthy ways. He's like doing push-ups. He's like, you know, just trying to get that energy out. But he still has so much more work to do, because he made himself physically sick. Like, he was vomiting and everything. And he's crying, and he called his friend. Like, he's trying to use some tools. But I really wish, you know, he would have gotten some therapy sooner, just some one-on-one, which, you know, I feel like he needs. I can't prescribe anything to anyone, because I'm not a doctor. I'm a nurse. We don't prescribe. But I really wish he had gotten some therapy or some type of treatment, because this is really the lack of control for him. the lack of reassurance for him, the thought of possibly losing this person is really taking him through. And it was kind of hard to watch. So, again, you have to deal with your past. You have to heal yourself. And you can't get in a relationship holding a person to a standard that you may never lose them, because we have the cycle of life to deal with, because some of us may go, right? And you also have the human aspect of things, that people make mistakes and you may have to live with the mistakes that they've been made. So her date comes to the house, as I stated. They go out. I'm not going to really get too much into their interaction. He sang a song and everything else, but Sean was really going through. And before you get into a relationship, you really have to deal with yourself. And once you get into a relationship, when things happen, you really have to deal with them. And you really have to have conversations and then come up with a plan. People say things, they conversate about things, but they never go past that point. You have to come up with a plan to reach your ultimate goal, whether that be marriage or whatever the case may be. So I don't know. And then there's more about LaShonda, but I'm going to wait till the season unfolds some more before I say anything. So next up, they meet back with Dr. Nicole, and Darian and Alexis talk about, their experience. Alexis said that, the guy she went on a date with listened to her. And so Dr. Nicole went into, you felt hurt, which communication is important. And when you communicate with your partner, you should listen to understand and not listen to talk, or listen to pounce, as I like to say. Because some people just want to pounce. They just want to go. I'm just waiting for you to say what you want to say, because I already know what I'm going to tell you about yourself, right? But you're not hearing what the person is saying. And honestly, most of the time, you're way off. You look way off. So they, for the first time since college, sat up all night and actually talked, and there was no finger pointing. There was just a conversation about whatever they talked about. They didn't go into detail, but I'm sure it had a lot to do with what has happened over the years and how did we get to this place. At least I hope that's the conversation, but again, I don't know. But I thought that was great. And Dr. Nicole commended them for reaching that milestone. So next up, we have Jessica and Eric. Jessica and Eric. So they talk about their experience. Jessica talks about her date. She basically just says he was nice looking. And Dr. Nicole asks, do you trust her? Long and short, like I stated earlier, they don't trust each other. There's an issue with trust in a relationship. And Dr. Nicole said, so you're trying to build a long-term relationship on that foundation, meaning you're building a foundation. Your foundation has no trust. So you're setting yourself up for failure in the long term. And, Jessica was like, well, you can try. But why is the question? Why would you try? Why are you with someone that you don't trust? Why don't you trust that person? What can you guys do to get over that? What will make you trust him besides just getting married? Because that won't stop the behavior if that's what he's going to do. And why doesn't he trust her? He says because she's a flirt. But what does that mean? And so they came together how they came together, which, basically he was being unfaithful and she knew about it. And now you're here. So you're 3 or 4 years into your relationship and you guys don't trust each other because of how you met and who you are. So you got to be careful how you start your relationship and how you show up for your person, because in the back of their mind, like I said, the last review, it's going to always be there that this person is capable of doing these things, they are capable of being unfaithful, right? And so Dr. Nicole said, you got to think about what you guys are doing. How is that behavior going to be helpful in your relationship and or damaging to your relationship? And how do you change it? Which is a very good question. I love Dr. Nicole. I'm so happy she's here. So next up, we get to Sean and LaShonda, or LaRonda. I think her name is LaRonda. Forgive me. And Sean gets everyone emotional. And basically, she talks about her date, and she says, LaRonda talks about her date, and she says how he had a song for her. And, you can see Sean, like, just how he's moving. It's his fear of losing her is great, and it shows in his actions. And they start having a conversation, and he admits, like, at the end of the day, I don't want to be what my father was. And so he's essentially projecting all of his fears and anxiety onto the relationship. And he said, I'm foreshadowing, and a lot of times, again, with abandonment, people oftentimes do that. And that's where you get these codependent relationships, right? You don't want them. There's a whole thing on attachment style. I talked about it in one of my podcasts, but you don't want this person to leave you. You want to be perfect. But all this time you're operating outside of yourself and outside of the relationship. None of this is happening. It isn't a reality, but you're making it a reality, but it's all an illusion. And that's pretty much what Sean is doing. And I loved how Dr. Nicole navigated him through that. She basically said, well, are you doing what your father did? And he said, no, I don't treat my wife like that, my girlfriend like that. And so she said, so you're already doing something different. The bottom line is he's going to have to let go. Like, he has to do all of this work to let go. But this really speaks to sometimes people don't realize the damage that they're doing to their children. And it isn't always intentional. I'm sure his dad was operating out of what he knew. Right. And so that goes on and on and on. And when they talk about breaking generational curses, he's in the seat where he can break a generational curse. And he's already started doing it. And I think Dr. Nicole let him know, like, you're already doing it. You just have to continue. Again, I commend his vulnerability and being willing to cry, because it was so funny. He got everybody crying. And I watched Alexis at first when he started crying. She looked at him like, there's no crying in baseball. But then eventually she was too. Because at the end of the day, we are all a sum of our experiences. And some of us have had some really traumatic experiences when we've been taught to deal with them a certain way. And he, for whatever reason, is okay with talking about it. Whereas a lot of us are not. But he moved everybody, and I think he had everybody thinking about how they are operating in their relationship. Like, where exactly does this source of energy, fear, insecurity, where does all that come from? I think that is what came out of this section. So we'll see. So next, Dr. Nicole asked LaRonda about her date and what would she do. And LaRonda said she's not going to go on another date. And she's not going to go on another date because she doesn't want to upset Sean. And Sean is happy, but he's trying to play it off like, but it's not fair. Like, I know it's not fair, but basically I'm still happy. And Dr. Nicole says, you got to be honest with yourself and ask Sean, do you think it's fair that she's making this decision? And again, he's like, no, but yeah. Yeah, but no. But at the end of the day, she was like, Dr. Nicole said, you're not going to like where you end up if you're not honest with yourself. And a lot of times, again, in codependent type relationships, and I'm not labeling, I'm not a doctor. In codependent type relationships, people do that. You need me, so I have to protect you. But then you lose yourself in that process. So you can't lose yourself in that process trying to protect a person, because then who are you? And then we have resentment and all other things. So this is going to be a very interesting season. Sean, I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Sean. So I think this is going to be a very interesting season. I honestly think, you guys let me know what you think. I actually think that the men are going to do more work than it appears that they're going to do. Darian seems to be really open to the process. I think he's just trying to get back to day one. Eric is like, listen, if we're going to get married, this is what we're going to do, And then Sean is already in touch with all of his emotions, and I think he'll be willing to as well. It's just he has to go through that process of letting go of his past. So I don't know. We'll see. You guys let me know what you think down below. I could be wrong. So you never know. We're going to watch this unfold. But I have a few takeaways from this episode. Number one, don't forget who you are. And I talk about dating yourself. I did an episode about the importance of dating yourself. It's very important to remember who you are and to date yourself so you don't lose yourself, right? Heal from your pain. Relationships are hard enough, and you guys have a lot to go through in relationships. There's a lot to take with you. There is life, the circle of life, right? And so if you keep just adding things on, you don't take anything off your plate, eventually that plate is going to tilt over. So it's very important to heal from your pain. Communication is key. Listen to understand and to learn, and not listen to react, which I talked about in another podcast actually. And then the fourth one is be honest with yourself. A lot of times we're dishonest because we want to protect our partners, but we have to be honest. And you as a partner has to listen to the honesty. Being honest with someone or allowing someone to be honest with you doesn't mean you're going to like it. It doesn't mean that it's going to go over well. But if you guys are dedicated to doing the work in your relationship, you'll have that conversation. Like, difficult conversations will come. And that is okay, Being able to have difficult conversations is important, though, and difficult, transparent, and not conversations where you're like tearing each other down and blaming each other and things like that. So that's what I learned. You guys let me know your thoughts, what you learned, what were your takeaways. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the content. And if you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I have a interesting work schedule, so I'm sorry if my days are off, but my days kind of fluctuate. But I thank you again for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for stopping by and for who you are. Love you for who you are. Thank you for letting me speak. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.